We are glad to see you again on our channel. Today we have the recap of the movie Prometheus, released in 2012. Sit comfortably and enjoy watching. A group of archaeologists from the United States went to Sky Island in Scotland in hopes of a great discovery, and they were not disappointed. Inside the cave, they found cave paintings dating from about 35,000 years ago. This discovery caused quite a stir in the scientific world, because the images in the drawings indicated that at one time there were alien life forms on Earth that came into contact with our race. In 4 years, the spaceship Prometheus is launched into space. It carries scientists who dream to find their forefathers. They go to a distant planet where the engineers of all life live. A man of alien appearance approaches the waterfall. He undresses, puts some device on the ground, drinks from it. A man gets sick, his body literally crumbles, and he falls into the water. 2089, Sky Island, Scotland. A group of scientists in the mountains find in the cave drawings on the walls. The girl suggests that they are about 35,000 years old, and even more. They discuss with the man that it seems those who left the drawings want to be found. 2093. Spacecraft Prometheus is in space. David approaches the capsule where Elizabeth Shaw is. A man sees the memory of a young girl when she learns of her father's death. The girl wondered where people go after they die and found out that in heaven. David plays with a ball, rides a bike, eats food, and watches news. The guy watches a movie, smooths his hair. Suddenly, he hears a signal of approaching the destination. David turns on all electronics and opens windows to see the space. The guy goes into the room and sees there Meredith Vickers. The girl asks how long, and David replies that 2 years, 4 months, 18 days, 36 hours, 15 minutes. He also says that everyone is alive. The girl orders to wake everyone up. Dr. Elizabeth Shaw wakes up and vomits. David advises the girl to relax. Janek decorates the Christmas tree and tells Meredith that they need holidays. Meredith pronounces that now there will be an instruction that the captain should visit. Milburn meets Fifield, who says he doesn't need friends, he wants money. Everyone is going to the briefing. Meredith Vicky says it's her job to keep an eye on how the team works. The video is launched, and Peter Wayland, an employer, says the recording was made in 2091. The man tells that David is not a human. The man also says that doctors Charlie Holloway and Elizabeth Shaw are now team leaders. Peter says that Titan Prometheus wanted people to be equal to the gods, and for that, he was deposed from Olympus. Now it's time for him to return. Charlie shows images of archaeological finds from different parts of the Earth and says that ancient civilizations are separated by many centuries. They have evolved independently of each other, but in all the finds, the same pattern of people who worshipped giant creatures, pointing at the stars. Given the location of the nearest galaxy, ancient civilizations could not have known about it. In this galaxy, there is a sun like ours. According to researchers, there is the same planet, only one, but with a satellite, and life is possible there. Elizabeth says that all drawings are an invitation from the engineers. David asks Elizabeth and Charlie to visit Meredith Vicky. He says that the room is a separate module with an independent life support system. Air, food, and everything else that is necessary for survival. Elizabeth sees a capsule in the room that eliminates human damage. Meredith tells the couple that they made an impression on Peter, but for her, their engineers are invented by savages living in dirty caves. Meredith says that Peter was superstitious and chose only fanatical people. Charlie asks, how are David's lessons? David says he has studied ancient languages for 2 years and will be able to communicate with creatures if necessary. Janek tells Ravel and Chance that it's time to land. Janek tells everyone that they are entering the atmosphere. Everyone takes place. In this atmosphere, there is 21% of oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide is more than 3%. And therefore, without a spacesuit, it is impossible to be more than 2 minutes. Charlie sees the valley and asks Janek to land the ship there. The ship lands. Charlie asks the captain to put on the spacesuits. Janek says that it will soon be dark, and suggests postponing the raid until the morning. But Charlie disagrees. Charlie asks why David uses a spacesuit as robots don't breathe. David said that he was made to be human, and that if he didn't have a spacesuit, everyone would be nervous. The team takes the cars and leaves the ship. The team lands near a huge structure. The explorers enter and see a corridor there. Fifield scans the space and reports to the ship that they are making a map. The team reaches one of the points and sees that the sunlight there heats the water. That's why there is a lot of humidity. Charlie says that the carbon dioxide level here is breathable. He says that something generates an atmosphere here. Charlie removes the helmet, followed by all the others. The team discovers that the temperature inside is -12, but the water does not freeze. David discovers on the walls some slime and a board with holes, like a computer. David pushes something and sends some signal. Some translucent hologram figures run past the team. Researchers run after them and see a body that was decapitated by the door. The researchers see inscriptions on the walls and ask David to read them. Fifield is angry and says that he is not interested in huge corpses. He's going back to the ship. David tries to open the door. Elizabeth says they don't know what's behind it, but the door already opens. Ford, Elizabeth, and Charlie see a head that is very well preserved. David sees a huge statue face that looks like a man. Researchers pay attention to the mural on the top of the walls. David sees a large number of jars on the ground that release moisture. David sees organic slime on the jar. Elizabeth notices that the murals are changing and suggests that they affect the atmosphere in the hall. The girl asks Ford to help her pack her head. Janek sees a thunderstorm moving on them. He contacts the team in the cave and tells them to come back. Meredith says that he will close the gateway in 15 minutes. Charlie says it's just a grave. David takes one jar. Ford and Elizabeth take the head. The team gets in the car and comes to the ship. The storm begins. Elizabeth sees that they have dropped the head and runs after it. The girl is blown away by the wind. Charlie approaches the girl. David clings to the rope and takes Elizabeth and Charlie to the ship. Janek says he is glad the team is back, but asks where Fifield and Milburn are. Elizabeth says they had to come back. Janek communicates with Fifield and Milburn, who wander the cave and tell them to stay inside until the weather is better. Ford and Elizabeth are looking over the found head. Meredith asks if all the engineers died. The girls realize that the helmet is still on the head. David takes it off and under it is the head. On the forehead, there are new cells. Elizabeth tells Ford to send a pulse to the head. The head opens the eyes. Elizabeth says to put it quickly behind the glass. The head explodes and something emerges from it. Elizabeth says to take the fragment and examine it. David talks to someone through his helmet, saying that he will sort things out. Meredith asks David what he told him. David says they should try harder. David opens the jar he brought from the cave. Elizabeth looks through the DNA and sees that the creatures are similar to humans. David pulls out the liquid bulb from the jar. He says that the big starts with small. David approaches Charlie and says, "It's a shame all the engineers have disappeared." Charlie says that the purpose of this expedition is to find the engineers and the answers to why they created humans. The robot asks why people created it. Charlie says because they could. David pours the guy a drink. Fifield and Milburn see a pile of bodies in the cave. Janek contacts the guys and says he detected a pulse near them. He says the sensor found a life form. Elizabeth is reviewing the recording from the cave. She says that they are trying to understand why the head exploded and whether there was an epidemic outbreak. Charlie comes to the girl and says he would like to talk to the engineers. Elizabeth tells the guy that the genetic material of the engineers is older than humans. That is, people descended from them. The couple kisses. Meredith looks at the map and asks Janek how long it will take. Janek says he does not know and is wondering if the girl is a robot. Meredith calls the boy to her room. Fifield and Milburn continue to walk through the cave. They see some movement in the water nearby. The guys contact the ship and say that they have a snake-like creature nearby. The snake grabs Milburn by the hand and then grips it completely. A snake breaks a guy's hand. Fifield starts cutting the snake, which releases some kind of liquid that corrodes the guy's suit. The snake climbs into Milburn's suit and then into the guy's mouth. Charlie wakes up and notices the redness in his eyes. Janek says he can't contact Fifield and Milburn. Janek tells David that the sensor catches some form of life every hour and asks him to find it and fix it. The team goes to the cave in search of Fifield and Milburn. Meredith on David's camera watches him from the ship. David finds the sensor and follows it to another room. At the entrance, the robot sees the statues. David moves on and disconnects Meredith. Elizabeth notes Charlie's condition, saying that he looks ill. The team reaches the jars and sees that something is coming out of them. The team finds Milburn's body. Elizabeth tells everyone to leave the cave because Charlie is sick and ill. The team begins to leave. Charlie gets worse. David enters the room, sees a lot of eggs, presses them. The robot sees the throne and sits on it. Hologram figures appear indoors. The creature from the hologram sits on the throne, picks up a device similar to a tube and begins to play on it with its lips. It presses the eggs one by one and a green ball appears, like a planet. Then in the center of the room forms a blue ball planet, and around there are a lot of other planets. David finds among them the Earth and briefly takes it in his hands. Everything disappears. David sees the capsule and approaches it. Inside the capsule lies the creator being with a set of tubes. Charlie begins to mutate. The team takes him to the ship. Janek commands to open the gate, but Meredith takes the weapon and says that Charlie will not board. Janek says that he can be placed in a medical module. Charlie consciously approaches Meredith. The girl pushes the trigger, and the fire wraps the guy. David gives Elizabeth condolences. The girl asks him to take blood tests from everyone. David examines the girl and says she's pregnant, 3 months period. Elizabeth says that she had an affair with Charlie 10 hours ago and she can't possibly be pregnant. David says the fetus is unusual. Elizabeth says the fetus must be disposed of. David recommends conservation before returning to Earth. He gives the girl an injection. David says the girl's father lost his life in similar circumstances as Charlie. 2 men in spacesuits come to transfer Elizabeth to another compartment for examination. Elizabeth breaks out and runs to a medical capsule. The girl chooses fetal extraction, injects herself, and lies down in the capsule. The machine extracts from Elizabeth's belly some creature similar to an octopus. The girl quickly crawls out of the capsule and closes it along with the creature. Janek says that Fifield's monitor is turned on. The guys go after him and see that Fifield has turned into a mutant. He deprives 2 guys of life. Janek and Chance come to the rescue. Elizabeth comes into the room and sees Peter there. She says the man was on the ship all the time and slept. The man says that he has a couple of days to live, and he didn't want to waste them without being sure to meet the engineer. David says that one engineer is alive. Peter says that he will save him from death. Elizabeth says that everything here is not what they thought. Janek tells Elizabeth that this is not the house of the engineers, but their military facility. Peter is talking to Meredith. The girl tells him that he will die if he goes to the engineer. Peter puts on a spacesuit and goes with the others to the cave. Elizabeth sees a huge number of jars and shows them to Janek. Janek deduces a picture and realizes that it is a ship. David takes the team to the room where he himself was. He says the creatures appear to have planned to leave for Earth before the crash. Elizabeth becomes ill. David comes to the flask with the engineer and opens it. The engineer stands up. Peter asks David to talk to him. Elizabeth says that it is necessary to find out what is the cargo here on the ship of the engineers and why they hate people. The engineer cuts off David's head. He scatters everyone from the team. Elizabeth escapes. Peter dies. The engineer activates something and boards his ship. Elizabeth tells Janek and Meredith that they must stop the ship or else it will destroy the Earth. Janek's ship activates the ion drive and crashes into the creator's ship. Meredith dies. Elizabeth enters her ship and feels that someone is there. David contacts her and tells her that the girl needs to leave. The engineer approaches Elizabeth, but the girl opens the door and he is attacked by an octopus. It deprives the engineer of life. David tells Elizabeth that there are still ships on the planet that he can control. The girl finds a robot and says she wants to go where the engineers come from. Elizabeth says she wants to know why the creatures first created humans and then decided to destroy them. Elizabeth leaves a message that she continues to search. There's a creature on the ship,